A millionaire father froze in the kitchen doorway because the daughter who hadn't truly smiled in over a year was laughing with a woman he barely knew. Nathan Whitmore stopped breathing for a second. There at the marble counter stood his 8-year-old daughter Lily with flour dusted across her nose and both hands buried in dough. Beside her was Grace Miller, the new housekeeper who had walked into their home only 12 days earlier. 12 days. And somehow she had done what doctors, relatives, tutors, and expensive therapists had failed to do. She had made Lily smile. Not the polite little smile Lily gave when adults leaned too close and asked if she was feeling better. Not the empty smile she used to end conversations. A real smile. Grace did not fuss over her. She did not speak to her like she was broken. She simply placed the dough in front of her and said softly, "Press here with your palm." Lily tried. The dough folded wrong. Her shoulders tightened. Nathan knew that look. This was the moment his daughter usually shut down, pushed everything away and disappeared into her room. But Grace did not rush. "It doesn't have to be perfect," she said. "We just keep going." Lily stared at the dough. Then she tried again. This time it worked just enough. And then came the sound Nathan thought he might never hear again. His daughter laughed. The whole kitchen changed. Lily looked up and saw him. "Dad, look." Her voice was not small. Not cracked. Not afraid. It was alive. Nathan stepped closer, fighting the ache in his chest. "I'm looking," he whispered. "It's beautiful." Since Grace Miller walked into the Whitmore home, something impossible had begun to happen. But to understand why Nathan stood there, with tears burning behind his eyes watching Lily laugh over a crooked piece of dough, you have to understand what that house had become after her mother died. It was not a home anymore. It was a museum of grief. The long hallways stayed polished. The silver frames stayed dust-free. The white curtains were opened every morning and closed every night by people who moved quietly as if one loud sound might break the last fragile thing still standing. And that fragile thing was Lily. She was only 8 years old. But after her mother, Emily Whitmore, passed away, Lily stopped moving through the world like a child. She moved like someone waiting for another goodbye. At first, everyone thought time would fix it. Nathan believed that too. He wanted to believe it. He hired the best people. Child specialists. Private tutors. Gentle counselors with soft voices and expensive leather notebooks. Women who knelt beside Lily and said, "You can trust me, sweetheart." Lily would look at them. Sometimes she would nod. Sometimes she would even sit close for a few minutes. Then her eyes would drift toward the door. And just like that, she would disappear. Upstairs. Bedroom locked. No crying loud enough for anyone to hear. No shouting. Just silence. The kind of silence that made a father stand outside his daughter's door at midnight with his hand raised, unable to knock. Nathan tried gifts. A new dollhouse. A white pony waiting at the riding club. A piano teacher who said music could heal anything. Lily thanked him every time. Politely. Carefully. Like a guest in her own life. Then she went back to staring out the window, her small hands folded in her lap, watching the driveway as if someone might still come home. Relatives visited in waves. They brought casseroles, flowers, advice, and pity. "She needs structure," one aunt whispered in the sitting room. "She needs discipline," another said. "She's getting spoiled because everyone is afraid to upset her." Nathan heard all of it. He said nothing. Because part of him was afraid they were right. And another part of him hated himself for even thinking it. The truth was, no one knew what to do with Lily. One nanny tried to cheer her up every morning with bright songs and forced smiles. Lily hid in the pantry until lunch. Another gave her strict schedules and reward charts. Lily stopped eating breakfast. A private teacher suggested medication before she had even spent one full afternoon with the girl. That was the day Nathan finally lost his temper. "Get out," he said. The teacher blinked. "Mr. Whitmore, I only meant." "I said get out." And one by one they all left. But every departure taught Lily the same lesson. People came in. People got tired. People went away. After a while she stopped giving them the chance. The staff began whispering before entering rooms. They avoided eye contact. If Lily sat in the library, they cleaned somewhere else. If she came into the kitchen, conversation died. Not because they were cruel. Because they were afraid of doing the wrong thing. But children understand fear. They feel it in the air. Lily understood more than anyone knew. She heard the pauses when adults said her name. She saw the looks exchanged over her head. She knew people called her difficult, unpredictable, impossible. And slowly those words became walls. By the time Grace arrived, the Whitmore mansion had learned to move around Lily instead of toward her. Grace did not arrive with a plan to save anyone. She came with 2 suitcases, plain black shoes, and a calm face that did not change when the house manager warned her. "The little girl keeps to herself." Grace only nodded. That first morning, she found Lily sitting on the hallway floor with her knees pulled to her chest, watching employees pass like shadows. Grace stopped a few feet away. "Good morning," she said. Lily did not answer. Grace did not push. She simply went on folding towels. The next morning the same thing happened. "Good morning." Silence. On the third day Grace sat on the opposite side of the hallway while sorting cleaning supplies. After several quiet minutes, she looked at a scuff mark on the floor and said not directly to Lily, "This floor picks up every little thing." Lily stared at the tiles. Then in a voice almost too soft to hear she answered, "The whole house does." Grace did not smile too big. She did not celebrate. She just nodded. "Yeah," she said. "I guess it does." That was the first crack in the wall. Not a dramatic breakthrough. Not a miracle. Just one sentence. One adult who did not grab at it. One child who was finally allowed to speak without being chased. And now standing in the kitchen doorway days later, Nathan understood the weight of what he was seeing. Lily was not just making bread. She was staying. She was listening. She was trying again after a mistake. She was standing beside someone without preparing to run. Grace dusted a little flour from the counter and slid the dough back toward Lily. Again she said gently. Lily pressed both palms into it. This time she did not freeze. Nathan watched his daughter breathe without fear. And for the first time since Emily's death, the house did not feel like a place holding its breath. It felt alive. Grace Miller never tried to rescue Lily Whitmore. That was what made her different. Everyone before Grace had walked into that house with a mission. Fix the child. Cheer her up. Pull her out of grief. Bring back the little girl Nathan used to know. But Grace did none of that. She did not chase Lily down the hallway when Lily disappeared. She did not ask, "Do you miss your mom?" in that soft, careful voice adults used when they wanted sadness to look pretty. She did not kneel in front of Lily's face and demand eye contact. Grace simply stayed. Quietly, steadily. Like a lamp left on in a dark room. The morning after the bread dough, Nathan watched from the far end of the hall as Grace carried a basket of clean towels toward the linen closet. Lily sat on the stairs hugging her knees pretending not to notice. Grace passed her once. Then twice. On the third trip, she stopped beside the bottom step and adjusted the basket on her hip. "These towels are too tall for the closet shelf," Grace said. Lily looked up. "Just a little." Grace glanced at the stack. "If they fall, I'm blaming the towels." No smile. No performance. Just the smallest crack of humor. Lily blinked at her. Then she whispered, "Towels can't be blamed." Grace nodded like she had been corrected by a serious expert. "That's fair." And she kept walking. Nathan stood still. Most people would have grabbed that moment. They would have rushed in, praised Lily, pushed for more words, asked a dozen questions. Grace did not. She let the moment breathe. That afternoon, Lily wandered into the laundry room while Grace folded sheets. The room was warm, filled with the soft thump of the dryer and the smell of clean cotton. Sunlight came through the small window and turned the floating dust into gold. Lily stood by the door. Grace did not look surprised. She simply lifted one corner of a sheet and said, "This one needs another pair of hands." Lily hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her sweater. Nathan had seen this before. The wish to step forward. The fear of being needed. The panic that came when someone expected too much. Grace waited. No pressure. No smile begging for trust. Just space. After a long moment, Lily walked over and took the other corner. Together they folded the sheet badly. One side hung lower than the other. Lily stared at it. Her face changed. That small shadow crossed her eyes, the one that always came before she shut down. Grace saw it. "It's crooked," Lily said. "It is," Grace answered. Lily swallowed. "I did it wrong." Grace shook the sheet once and laid it over the table. "No," she said. "We folded a crooked sheet." Lily looked at her. Grace smoothed the fabric with both hands. "That's not a disaster. That's laundry." For one second, Lily did not understand. Then her mouth moved. Not a full smile. But close. Grace picked up another sheet. Again she asked. Lily nodded. From the hallway, Nathan felt something twist inside his chest. Because Grace was teaching his daughter something no therapist had managed to teach. A mistake was not an ending. A wrong fold did not mean rejection. A crooked piece of dough did not mean failure. You could just keep going. Later that evening, the house moved with a different kind of quiet. Not the old quiet. Not the heavy silence that pressed against the walls. This quiet had breath in it. Grace wiped the kitchen counter while Lily sat nearby with a pencil and paper. She did not draw her mother's face this time. She drew a loaf of bread with steam rising from the top. Nathan entered slowly, afraid that even his footsteps might scare the moment away. Lily noticed him. For once, she did not hide the paper. She turned it around. "It's the bread," she said. Nathan walked closer. The drawing was simple. Uneven. A little lopsided. But beside the bread Lily had drawn two hands. One small. One larger. Nathan's throat tightened. It looks warm, he said. Lily studied the page like that mattered. Grace rinsed the cloth in the sink and said nothing. That was her gift. She knew when to speak. And she knew when silence could hold more love than words. At dinner, Lily stayed at the table 3 minutes longer than usual. Then 5. Then 10. She picked at her food but she stayed. Grace moved in and out of the kitchen, never hovering, never trying to claim the victory. Nathan watched his daughter follow her with her eyes. Not with fear. With trust. A careful, fragile trust. The kind that could not be demanded, only earned. When Grace passed behind Lily's chair, Lily lifted her glass of water and moved it so Grace would not bump it. It was such a tiny thing. Almost nothing. But Nathan saw it. His daughter was making room for someone. After dinner, Lily stood by the kitchen door while Grace washed the last pan. Grace, she said. Grace turned off the water. Yes. Lily looked down at her socks. Tomorrow. Can we make the bread less crooked? Grace dried her hands on her apron. We can try. Lily nodded. Then she looked up. And if it's still crooked? Grace's voice stayed calm. Then we keep going. Lily held that answer in her face. Like she was trying to memorize it. Then she walked upstairs. Nathan remained in the doorway listening to her small footsteps fade above him. Grace turned back to the sink. Nathan said quietly. You know, she doesn't let people close. Grace did not look up. I know. She's been hurt by people leaving. I know that too. He studied her face, the tired eyes, the steady hands, the way she carried no pride in what she had done. Then why does she trust you? Grace paused. The water dripped once from the faucet. Then she said, because I'm not asking her to. Nathan had no answer. Because in that one sentence Grace had explained everything. She had not entered Lily's world with keys. She had sat outside the door. And waited until the child opened it herself. By the next morning, the kitchen was no longer just a kitchen. It was the one room in the Whitmore house where Lily did not look ready to run. Sunlight spilled across the marble counter. Flour floated in the air like pale dust. The old mixer hummed softly in the corner and the smell of warm yeast slowly filled the room. Grace Miller stood beside the counter with her sleeves rolled up. Lily stood on a small wooden step stool. Nathan watched from the doorway pretending he had only come downstairs for coffee. But he had not. He had come to see if yesterday had been real. Grace placed a ball of dough in front of Lily. Same as before, she said. Palm down, push forward, then bring it back. Lily nodded with the seriousness of someone handling glass. She pressed both hands into the dough. Too hard. The dough flattened badly, sliding sideways across the counter. Lily froze. Her fingers curled. Her mouth tightened. For a second, the old Lily came back. The child who heard correction as rejection. The child who believed one mistake meant she had ruined everything. Nathan felt his body tense. He knew this moment. He had seen it with piano lessons. With math worksheets. With tying ribbons. With every tiny failure that seemed to open a trapdoor beneath his daughter's feet. Lily stared at the dough. I messed it up, she whispered. Grace looked at the dough, then at Lily's hands. No, she said calmly. You made it wider. Lily blinked. That's bad. It's bread, Grace said. Bread forgives a lot. Nathan almost smiled, but he stayed silent. Grace gathered the dough back toward the center. Not quickly. Not as if she were fixing a disaster. Just gently with both hands. It doesn't have to be perfect, she said. We just keep going. Lily looked down at the dough. That sentence landed somewhere deep. Nathan could see it. The child did not move right away. She stood there breathing, trying to decide if she believed this new rule. In her world, people left. Rooms changed after funerals. Adults got tired. Nannies packed bags. Teachers gave up. Relatives whispered. But here was Grace standing beside a ruined lump of dough saying it was not ruined at all. Lily placed her palms down again. This time softer. The dough bent. It did not tear. Grace nodded once. There. Lily looked up fast. That was right. That was enough. The words settled over the room. Enough. Not perfect. Not impressive. Enough. Lily pressed again. Then again. Each time her shoulders lowered a little more. Her face loosened. The fear around her eyes faded by inches. Grace sprinkled a little flour across the counter. Lily copied her. Too much came out. A white cloud puffed upward. It landed on Lily's nose. For one quiet second nobody moved. Then Grace looked at the flour on Lily's face and said completely serious. The bread attacked first. Lily stared at her. Then she laughed. Not a tiny breath. Not a polite sound. A real laugh. Bright? startled. Alive? Nathan gripped the doorframe. The sound went through him like sunlight breaking into a locked room. Grace did not make a big deal out of it. She did not clap. She did not say, "See, you're happy." She only handed Lily a towel. Lily wiped her nose, missed half the flour, and kept kneading. A few minutes later, Nathan stepped into the kitchen. Lily saw him immediately. "Dad," she said, her voice stronger than yesterday. "Look." He walked to the counter. The dough was uneven. Flour covered more of the marble than the bowl. One corner of the loaf sagged like it had given up halfway through life. But Lily stood over it with pride in her eyes. Nathan looked at the dough, then at his daughter. "I'm looking," he said. "That might be the best loaf this kitchen has ever seen." Lily studied his face, searching for pity. There was none. Only love. "It's crooked," she said. Grace leaned against the counter. "Most good things are." Lily turned to her, unsure whether that was a joke. Nathan chuckled softly. Lily smiled again. This time she did not hide it. When the bread finally went into the oven, Lily sat on the floor in front of it, knees tucked under her, watching through the glass door like she was waiting for a miracle. Nathan sat at the breakfast table nearby. Grace wiped the counter. For 20 minutes nothing dramatic happened. No big speech. No tears. No music swelling in the background. Just a child watching bread rise. And somehow it felt enormous. When the timer rang, Lily jumped. Grace opened the oven door and warm air rolled into the room. The loaf came out golden, in places pale and others lopsided but real. Lily leaned closer. "I made that," she said. Nathan's heart clenched. Grace set the pan down carefully. "You did." Lily looked at Grace. Then back at the bread. Her brow furrowed as if something important had just occurred to her. "No," she said softly. "We made that." The kitchen went still. Nathan looked away for a moment because his eyes had filled too fast. For months Lily had spoken like a person stranded on an island. "I don't want to. I'm fine. Leave me alone. My room? My things? My mom." But now, standing beside a crooked loaf of bread, she had said "we." One small word. One giant door opening. Grace's hands rested on the edge of her apron. Her expression barely changed, but her eyes softened. Nathan saw it. She understood what had just happened. Lily reached for the bread knife, then paused. "Can we cut it together?" Grace nodded. "Of course." Nathan stood behind them, watching Grace guide Lily's hands safely over the handle. The knife pressed down. The crust cracked. Steam rose into the air. And for the first time in over a year, the Whitmore house smelled not like polished floors, closed doors, or grief. It smelled like something being made. Something warm. Something shared. Lily lifted the first uneven slice and placed it on a plate. She carried it to Nathan with both hands. "For you," she said. Nathan took it like it was precious. Because it was. He broke off a piece, tasted it, and nodded. "It's perfect." Lily gave him a look. "You said it didn't have to be." Nathan smiled through the ache in his throat. "You're right," he said. "It doesn't." Lily looked back at Grace. Then at the loaf. And this time, when she smiled, she did not look surprised by it. She looked like she was starting to remember how. The bread was still warm when the front door opened. Not slowly. Not gently. It opened with the confident sound of someone who had never wondered whether she was welcome. Nathan looked up from the kitchen table. Lily was sitting beside Grace, carefully spreading butter over a crooked slice of bread. A thin line of flour still marked her cheek. For the first time in months she had eaten at the main table without being asked. Then high heels struck the hallway floor. Sharp. Fast. Certain. Grace turned her head slightly, but she did not move. Lily's hand paused over the bread. Nathan knew that sound. His sister had arrived. Victoria Whitmore swept into the kitchen wearing a cream-colored coat, dark sunglasses pushed on top of her head, and the kind of perfume that entered a room before she did. She stopped in the doorway as if the sight in front of her had offended some private rule. Lily at the kitchen table. Grace beside her. Bread between them. Warmth in a room that for over a year had belonged only to silence. Victoria's smile appeared quickly. Too quickly. "Well," she said, setting her handbag on the counter. "Look at this." Nathan stood. "Victoria. I didn't know you were coming. I was nearby." She was never nearby. She crossed the kitchen and kissed Nathan's cheek, barely touching him. Then her eyes moved to Lily. "Hello, sweetheart." Lily looked up. "Hi, Aunt Victoria." It was polite. Calm. Then Lily turned back to the bread. Victoria noticed. Her smile tightened. For a woman like Victoria, attention was not something to be shared. Especially not with a housekeeper who had been in the home less than 2 weeks. She looked Grace up and down. Not openly rude. Worse. Quietly measuring. "You must be the new help." Grace wiped her hands on her apron and nodded. "Grace Miller." Victoria did not offer her hand. I've heard your name. Grace said nothing. Nathan saw the change in his sister's eyes. She was not looking at Grace like an employee. She was looking at her like a threat. Lily lifted the plate. We made bread. Victoria glanced at the loaf. Did you? Lily nodded, a small bit of pride returning to her face. Grace showed me how. There it was. Grace? Not Miss Miller. Not the housekeeper. Grace? Victoria heard it too. Her eyes flicked to Nathan. That's nice, she said. But Lily should be spending more time with children her own age. The club has programs. Playdates, art classes, real structure. Nathan's jaw tightened. We tried those. Then try harder. The kitchen went still. Grace turned back to the sink and began rinsing a bowl, quiet as ever. She did not defend herself. She did not step into the conversation. She made no attempt to prove her place. And somehow, that irritated Victoria even more. She walked closer to Lily and lowered her voice into something soft and dangerous. Sweetheart, you know people who work here don't always stay forever, right? Lily's butter knife stopped moving. Nathan looked sharply at his sister. Victoria. But Victoria kept going. I'm only saying this because I love you. Sometimes we get attached to people and then they leave. That can hurt even more. Grace's hands froze under the running water. Only for a second. Then she turned the faucet off. Lily stared at the bread. The warmth that had filled the kitchen began to drain away. Nathan saw his daughter's shoulders fold inward. Not all at once. In inches. The way a flower closes when the sun disappears. She's not leaving, Lily said. Her voice was quiet. Victoria gave a careful sigh. You don't know that, honey? Lily looked at Grace. Grace did not answer. Because it was not her place to make promises she had not been asked to make. That silence cut Lily deeper than any lie would have. Her lower lip trembled. Nathan stepped forward. That's enough. Victoria turned to him, offended. I'm trying to protect her. No, Nathan said. You're scaring her. Victoria's face hardened. And you're confusing her. A housekeeper is not family, Nathan. She can be kind. She can help. But you cannot let Lily replace what she lost. The words hit the room like glass breaking. Replace what she lost. Lily pushed back from the table. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Grace turned toward her but still did not reach. Lily's eyes were bright now. Full. Terrified. I'm not replacing Mom, she whispered. Nathan's face changed. Victoria's confidence flickered for the first time. Lily looked from her aunt to Grace, then to the bread on the table. The bread they had made together. The first thing she had called we. Her small hands curled into fists. I just wanted to make bread. No one spoke. The hum of the refrigerator sounded suddenly too loud. Then Lily grabbed the drawing she had made earlier, the little loaf of bread, the two hands, the rising steam, and crushed it against her chest. She turned and ran. Up the back stairs. Fast. One door slammed above them. Then another. Nathan stood frozen for half a breath. Grace closed her eyes. Victoria lifted her chin, but the victory she expected was not there. Only damage. Nathan turned to his sister. His voice was low. Do you have any idea how long it took her to stay in this room? Victoria swallowed. You were only making sure the house stayed the way you understood it. He looked toward the stairs. But my daughter is not a room you can lock up and preserve. Grace picked up the crushed napkin Lily had left behind. Her fingers were steady but her face had gone pale. Nathan saw that too. Victoria had not only frightened Lily, she had reminded Grace of her place. The help. Temporary. Disposable. Someone who should never matter too much. Nathan looked at the crooked loaf of bread still sitting in the middle of the table. Minutes ago it had been a miracle. Now it looked like evidence. Proof that Lily had begun to heal. And proof that not everyone was ready to let her. Lily did not run because she was angry. She ran because in one sentence her aunt had brought the whole year back. The hospital room. The closed bedroom door. The black dress Nathan wore at the funeral. The quiet adults. The whispers. The people who came close, promised gentle things, then disappeared one by one. Upstairs Lily slammed her bedroom door and pressed her back against it. Her breathing came fast, too fast. In her hands the drawing was crushed into a tight ball. The bread. The steam. The two hands. One small. One larger. A picture of something she had just begun to believe in. Now it felt stupid. Childish. Dangerous. Downstairs Nathan stood in the kitchen with Victoria on one side and Grace on the other. The warm bread still sat on the table but nobody touched it now. Victoria crossed her arms trying to hold on to her certainty. She needed to hear it, she said. You cannot let her become dependent on someone who may not stay. Nathan turned slowly. His voice was quiet but it landed hard. She is 8 years old. Victoria blinked. She lost her mother, Nathan said. She is not dependent. She is lonely. Grace lowered her eyes. That word filled the room. Lonely, not difficult, not dramatic, not impossible. Lonely. Victoria looked toward the stairs, but pride kept her feet planted. Nathan did not wait for her to answer. He walked out of the kitchen and climbed the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. At Lily's door he stopped. For a moment he only listened. No sobbing. No shouting. That scared him more. He knocked once. Lily. Nothing. He rested his hand against the door. It's Dad. A long silence. Then her voice came through, small and sharp. Go away. Nathan closed his eyes. He had heard those words before. After the funeral. After the first nanny left. After a therapist told her that anger was part of healing and Lily decided never to speak to her again. But this time Nathan did not leave. He sat down on the floor outside her door, his back against the wall. All right, he said softly. I'm right here. Inside the room Lily stood frozen. She had expected him to knock again. To plead. To get upset. To send someone else. But the hallway stayed still. Minutes passed. Then she slid down the inside of the door, still holding the ruined drawing. Her voice came again. She's going to leave. Nathan looked at the closed door. Grace? Lily swallowed. Everybody leaves. The words were barely louder than breath. Nathan felt them like a hand closing around his throat. He looked down at his own hands. The hands that had signed papers, run companies, made decisions worth millions. And yet for more than a year they had not known how to hold his own daughter's pain. Your mom didn't want to leave you, he said. Silence. She was sick, sweetheart. She loved you every minute. The door shook slightly. Lily had pressed her forehead against it. I know. But the way she said it meant she did not know. Not in the part of her heart that still waited. Nathan's voice broke, but he kept it steady. And Grace didn't come here to replace anyone. Lily's fingers tightened around the paper. Aunt Victoria said people like Grace leave. Nathan took a slow breath. Aunt Victoria was wrong to say that. Another silence. Then Lily whispered, Grace didn't say she wouldn't. Nathan had no easy answer. Because Grace had not said it. And maybe that was what made the fear feel so real. Inside the room, Lily opened her hand and looked at the crushed drawing. The bread was bent across the middle. The two hands were almost torn apart. Her eyes filled again. I was stupid, she said. Nathan sat up straighter. No. I thought she liked being with me. She does. You don't know? I saw it. Lily's chin trembled. People act nice before they leave. That sentence broke something in Nathan. Not loudly. Not suddenly. But deep. Because he realized this fear had not started today. It had been growing quietly in every goodbye, every failed helper, every whispered warning, every adult who treated Lily like a problem too heavy to carry. He had thought he was protecting her by hiring people. By managing grief. By keeping life organized. But his daughter had learned a different lesson. Love was temporary. Closeness was dangerous. Hope was something that could be taken away. Nathan leaned closer to the door. Lily, listen to me. You are not too much. Inside her breath hitched. You are not hard to love. She squeezed her eyes shut. And you did not do anything wrong by caring about Grace. For the first time the doorknob moved. Slowly. The door opened just a few inches. Lily stood there in her socks, hair loose around her face, cheeks wet. In her hand was the crushed drawing. Nathan did not rush her. He stayed where he was sitting on the floor. Lily looked down at him. She'll go away, she whispered. Nathan held out his hand. I don't know everything that will happen, he said. But I know this. Nobody gets to scare you for loving someone. Lily's mouth crumpled. She stepped forward and fell into his arms. Nathan caught her. This time she cried loudly. Messy. Broken. Real. He held her against him as her small fists gripped his shirt. Downstairs Grace stood at the bottom of the staircase, hearing just enough to understand. Her eyes shone, but she did not climb the stairs. Not yet. Because Lily had opened one door tonight. And Grace knew better than anyone. A child like that could not be pulled the rest of the way. She had to be allowed to come back on her own. Nathan held Lily in the hallway until her crying slowed into small, tired breaths. Her face was pressed against his shirt. Her fingers gripped the fabric like she was afraid the floor might open beneath her. For a long time he said nothing. He had spent a year trying to explain grief to an 8-year-old. Tonight he finally understood. She did not need explanations. She needed someone to stay. When Lily pulled back, her cheeks were streaked with tears. The crushed drawing hung from her hand like something broken beyond repair. Nathan looked at it. Then he looked at his daughter. Lily, he said softly, I need to tell you the truth. Her eyes lifted. Not all the way. Just enough. He took a breath. The grown-ups in this house have talked too much about you without talking to you. Lily blinked. Nathan's voice stayed low but every word carried weight. We decided what was good for you. We hired people. We sent people away. We listened to advice from relatives, doctors, teachers, everyone. His throat tightened. And somewhere in all of that I forgot something important. Lily whispered. What? Nathan reached for the crushed drawing but he did not take it from her. He only touched the edge. You are not a problem to be managed. The hallway went still. Downstairs the house was silent. No footsteps. No clinking dishes. No whispered staff conversations. Even Victoria had stopped speaking. Nathan continued slower now. You are my daughter, and you get to have a voice? Lily stared at him as if she had never heard those words before. Because maybe she hadn't. Not like this. Not when it mattered. Nathan swallowed hard. When your mom died I got scared. I thought if I made the right choices, hired the right people, controlled everything, maybe I could protect you from hurting more. His eyes shone. But I didn't protect you from feeling alone. Lily's lips trembled. You were sad too, she said. Nathan let out a broken little breath. Yes. For the first time, he did not try to look strong. Not like the businessman everyone trusted. Not like the rich widower people pitied from a distance. Just a father sitting on the floor admitting he had been lost. I was so sad, he said. And I missed your mom so much that sometimes I filled the day with work because I didn't know how to sit in the quiet. Lily looked down. I sit in the quiet all the time. Nathan closed his eyes for a second. That sentence hurt more than any accusation. When he opened them, his voice was steady. You shouldn't have had to. He gently reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek. And from now on, no one is going to stand in another room and decide who is good for you without you. Lily searched his face. What about Aunt Victoria? Nathan looked toward the staircase. A different kind of firmness entered his expression. Your aunt loves you. But love does not give her the right to scare you. Lily held the crushed drawing tighter. She said Grace might leave. I know. And Grace didn't say anything. Nathan nodded. She didn't because Grace is careful with promises. That does not mean she does not care. Lily's eyes filled again. But what if someone makes her go? Nathan's face changed. Not angry. Clear. No one is making Grace leave because they are uncomfortable with seeing you get better. Lily went very still. Those words moved through her slowly. Seeing you get better. As if healing was not betrayal. As if smiling in a kitchen did not mean she loved her mother any less. As if making bread with Grace was not replacing Emily. It was simply living. Nathan stood and held out his hand. Come with me. Lily hesitated. Then she placed her small hand in his. They walked down the stairs together. One step at a time. At the bottom, Grace was standing near the hall table. Her apron was dusted with flour. Her face was calm but her eyes were wet. Victoria stood in the kitchen doorway, with her arms folded, her expression caught between pride and regret. Nathan did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Victoria, he said. Lily heard what you said. Victoria looked at the child. For once, she seemed unsure. I was trying to protect her. Nathan stepped slightly in front of Lily but did not hide her. No. You were trying to control what you didn't understand. Victoria's mouth opened. Nathan lifted one hand. Listen. The word stopped her. Not because it was loud. Because it came from the part of him that had finally woken up. This house has spent a year treating Lily like she might break if someone gets too close. But she is not breaking tonight because Grace stayed near her. She is hurting because you told her closeness was dangerous. Victoria's face softened just a little. Nathan turned to Lily. Tell her. Lily looked up at him frightened. He squeezed her hand. No one speaks for you right now. The room held its breath. Lily looked at her aunt. Her voice shook but it came out. I'm not trying to get another mom. Victoria's eyes flickered. Lily looked down at the crushed drawing. I just don't want everyone to leave when I start liking them. Grace's hand moved to her chest. Victoria looked away. Nathan knelt beside Lily. That was brave, he whispered. Then he turned to Grace. You have been kind to my daughter. You have helped her breathe in a house where all of us forgot how. Grace's lips parted but Nathan kept going. You are not here to replace anyone. And you are not a problem because Lily trusts you. The words landed in the kitchen like a door unlocking. Lily looked at Grace. Grace looked back. No dramatic promise. No desperate speech. Just truth. Nathan stood. From now on, he said, decisions about Lily will be made with Lily. Not around her. Not over her. With her. Lily's fingers tightened around his. For the first time she was not being discussed like a fragile object. She was standing in the room. Seen. Heard. Protected. Nathan looked down at the crushed drawing. Do you want to fix it? He asked. Lily studied the paper. Then she shook her head. No. A small breath. I want to draw another one. Grace's eyes softened. Nathan nodded. All right. Lily looked toward the kitchen table where the crooked loaf still waited. And maybe, we can still eat the bread. For a moment nobody moved. Then Grace gave the smallest smile. It may be crook, she said. Lily looked at her. But we made it. Nathan watched his daughter take one careful step toward the kitchen. This time no one stopped her. Grace Miller stayed long enough to help Lily eat one slice of bread. Just one? She stood beside the kitchen counter while Lily sat at the table with Nathan tearing the warm bread into small pieces, dipping each one into butter and chewing slowly like the room was still deciding whether it was safe. Victoria had gone quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that did not mean peace. It meant shame had entered the room and found nowhere to sit. Grace washed the baking bowl. She dried the knife. She wiped the flour from the marble counter until the kitchen looked almost normal again. Almost. But nothing was normal. Not after Lily had cried behind a locked door. Not after Nathan had stood in front of everyone and said his daughter would no longer be discussed like a problem. Not after Grace heard loud and clear what she had always known deep down. She did not belong to places like this. She could care. She could help. She could become necessary. But at the end of the day she was still the woman in the apron. The one people could point to and say, be careful, she won't stay. Grace folded the dish towel once. Then again. Her hands were steady. Her chest was not. Nathan noticed. He always noticed too late. Lily was drawing at the table now, a fresh sheet of paper in front of her. She had not drawn the bread yet. She was only making small lines, testing the pencil like a child learning to trust a blank page again. Grace looked at her for one quiet second. Then she untied her apron. Nathan saw it. The small motion hit him harder than it should have. Grace, he said. She turned. Her face was calm. Too calm. I'll finish the rest in the morning, Mr. Whitmore. Lily's pencil stopped. Nathan's eyes narrowed slightly. That sounds like you're leaving the room. Grace looked down at the apron in her hands. Maybe it's better if I leave the house. The pencil slipped from Lily's fingers. It rolled across the table and fell to the floor. No one picked it up. Nathan stood slowly. Victoria closed her eyes. Grace kept her gaze on the folded apron as if looking at Lily would break her. I didn't come here to cause trouble, she said. I was hired to keep the house running. Not to become part of something I don't have the right to touch. Nathan took one step toward her. You have every right to care. Grace shook her head, almost smiling, but there was no joy in it. Caring isn't always enough. Lily stared at her from the table. Her face had gone pale. Grace finally looked at her. And that was the mistake. Because the moment she saw Lily's eyes, all the strength in her own face cracked. I'm sorry, Grace whispered. Lily pushed her chair back. Not fast. Not angry. Terrified. You said we keep going. Grace swallowed. The words struck her like a hand against the heart. I know. You said, even if it's crooked. I know, sweetheart. Lily's voice shook. Then why are you stopping? Grace could not answer. Because the truth was too heavy for an 8-year-old. She had spent her life learning where the invisible lines were. Rich people upstairs. Working people downstairs. Family at the table. Employees at the edge of the room. And today Victoria had drawn that line in permanent ink. Grace's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. Sometimes staying makes things harder. Nathan's voice came firm and quiet. No. Grace looked at him. He stepped closer. Leaving because someone made you feel like you don't belong, that makes things harder. Victoria opened her mouth, but Nathan did not even glance at her. Grace, this house was not healing before you came. It was polished. It was quiet. It was organized. But it was not alive. Grace's hands tightened around the apron. Nathan's voice softened. My daughter smiled because you didn't force her to. She spoke because you didn't chase her words. She stayed in this kitchen because you let her be imperfect. Lily stood now, one hand gripping the back of the chair. Nathan continued. That is not trouble. That is not confusion. That is not overstepping. He looked toward the bread on the table. That is exactly what we needed. Grace looked away. I'm an employee. Yes, Nathan said. And you are also a human being who has shown my daughter more patience than anyone in this house. The room went silent. Even Victoria did not move. Grace's voice dropped. You don't understand what happens when people like me forget our place. Nathan's expression changed. Not with pity. With recognition. Maybe for the first time he understood that Grace was not simply trying to leave because she was offended. She was trying to leave before she was thrown away. Before, Lily trusted her more. Before Nathan defended her once then changed his mind later. Before this house gave her something warm and then reminded her it was never hers. Nathan stepped closer but not too close. Then let me be clear, he said. Your place in this house is not going to be decided by fear. Not Victoria's fear. Not your fear. Not mine. Grace's eyes met his. And Lily. Nathan turned to his daughter. He did not speak for her. He waited. Lily picked up the fallen pencil from the floor. Her hand trembled as she held it against her chest. I don't want you to go, she said. Simple. Small. Enough to break the room. Grace pressed her lips together. Lily took one step forward. I know you're not my mom. Grace's face crumpled. But you make the house not scary. Nathan looked down. Victoria covered her mouth. Grace took in a shaky breath. The folded apron slipped slightly in her hands. For a long moment nobody moved. Then Grace slowly set the apron back on the counter. Not tied around her waist. Not yet. Just placed there. A choice not fully made but no longer running. Nathan nodded once. You can stay, he said softly. Only if you want to. Grace looked at Lily. Lily looked back waiting. Not begging. Just hoping. Grace picked up the pencil from Lily's hand and placed it gently on the table. Then maybe, she said, her voice barely holding, we should finish that drawing. Lily's breath caught. Grace pulled out a chair. This time she sat at the table. Not behind it. Not beside the sink. At the table. And no one asked her to move. The next morning Lily did something no one expected. She walked past the kitchen. Past the table where the crooked loaf still sat under a clean towel. Past Grace, who was wiping the counter with slow, careful hands. And she stopped at the end of the hallway. In front of the closed white door. Her mother's room. For over a year no one had touched it. Not really. Nathan had ordered the staff to dust around things, never move them. The curtains stayed folded the way Emily had liked them. Her books stayed stacked on the bedside table. Her pale blue sweater still rested over the chair near the window as if she had stepped out for a moment and might come back before dinner. The room had become a promise no one could keep. Lily stood there with one hand on the doorknob. Nathan came around the corner and stopped. Grace stood a few feet behind him. No one spoke. Lily looked smaller than usual in that hallway, wearing soft pink pajamas and holding yesterday's new drawing against her chest. Nathan's voice was gentle. Lily. She did not turn around. I want to go in. Nathan's heart tightened. He had waited for this day. Feared it. Needed it. All right, he said. Lily glanced back but not at him. At Grace. Can Grace come too? Grace's face changed. Just slightly. Nathan saw the question land in her eyes. The old fear. The invisible line. Family on one side. Employees on the other. But before Grace could step back, Nathan answered. Yes. One word. Clear. Protected. Grace looked at him. Then at Lily. If you want me there, Grace said softly. Lily nodded. I do. The door opened with a quiet click. The room smelled faintly of lavender, old paper, and something softer. Something Lily knew before she had a word for it. Mom. Sunlight came through the curtains in pale strips. Dust floated in the air. Everything was still. Too still. Lily took one step inside. Then another. Her eyes moved to the bed. The vanity. The framed photograph on the dresser. Emily Whitmore, smiling in a summer dress, one arm wrapped around Nathan, the other around Lily when she was smaller. Lily had chocolate on her chin in the picture. Emily was laughing at her. Lily walked to it and touched the frame. Her finger rested on her mother's face. I forgot her laugh, she whispered. Nathan swallowed hard. Grace stayed near the door, hands folded, saying nothing. Lily looked at her father. Does that mean I'm forgetting her? Nathan crossed the room slowly and knelt beside her. No, sweetheart. Lily's eyes filled. Sometimes I can remember her hands. And her hair. And the way she smelled. But then sometimes I can't hear her voice anymore. Nathan took the photograph gently and sat on the edge of the bed. I forget pieces too, he admitted. Lily stared at him. You do? He nodded. Some days I remember everything. Other days I reach for a memory and it moves away. Her chin trembled. I don't want it to move away. I know. Grace looked down, fighting tears. Lily turned toward the closet. Can we look? Nathan hesitated only for a second. Then he stood. Together they opened it. Emily's dresses hung in a neat row. Cream navy, soft yellow. Shoes lined the floor. A scarf with tiny red flowers hung from a hook. Lily reached for it. Nathan took it down and placed it in her hands. She pressed it to her face. For a moment she closed her eyes. The room held its breath. Then Lily turned to Grace. Did your mom have a scarf? Grace blinked. The question surprised her. No, she said quietly. But she had an old green sweater she wore every winter. Lily lowered the scarf. Do you still have it? Grace's mouth curved into something sad. I do. Lily thought about that. Then she looked around the room. I thought if we moved anything, Mom would disappear. Nathan's face tightened. Grace took one small step forward. She won't, Grace said. Lily looked at her. Grace's voice stayed soft. People don't stay because their things never move. They stay because we carry them with us. Lily held the scarf tighter. Nathan closed his eyes. That was the sentence he had not known how to say. Lily looked at the room again. The untouched bed. The silent vanity. The chair with the sweater. It feels like she's trapped in here, Lily whispered. Nathan looked at his daughter. Then at the room he had preserved out of fear. Maybe he had not kept Emily close. Maybe he had kept everyone else from breathing. Lily walked to the chair and touched the blue sweater. Can I keep this in my room? Nathan's voice broke. Yes. And the picture? Yes. She glanced at Grace. And maybe, the scarf can stay downstairs. In the kitchen? Nathan blinked. The kitchen. Lily nodded. So when we make bread, she's there too. Grace covered her mouth. Nathan looked at the scarf in Lily's hands. For the first time, moving something did not feel like losing Emily. It felt like inviting her back into their lives. Not as a ghost in a closed room, but as love in the places where they still lived. Lily picked up a small photo album from the dresser and sat on the floor. Nathan sat beside her. After a moment, Grace sat too. Not too close. Close enough? They turned the pages slowly. Emily holding baby Lily. Emily laughing in the backyard. Emily with flour on her own cheek standing in that same kitchen years ago. Lily's eyes widened. She made bread. Nathan laughed softly through tears. She tried. Was it crooked? Very. For the first time inside her mother's room, Lily smiled. Not because the pain was gone. Because the memory had changed shape. It was not a locked door anymore. It was a story they could open together. Lily leaned against Nathan's side, still holding Emily's scarf. Then carefully, she reached one hand toward Grace. Grace looked at the small hand. Then took it. No one said anything. They did not need to. In that quiet room surrounded by photographs and sunlight and the woman they all knew could never be replaced, Lily began to understand something her heart had been too frightened to believe. Remembering did not mean staying frozen. Loving her mother did not mean refusing everyone else. And healing did not erase the past. It carried it forward. The scarf stayed in the kitchen. Not folded away. Not hidden in a drawer. Lily chose a small hook near the pantry door, where the soft blue fabric could catch the morning light. Nathan stood beside her while she hung it there. Grace watched from the counter, saying nothing, but her eyes told the truth. Something had changed. The house no longer felt like it was holding its breath. For 3 quiet days, peace returned in small pieces. Lily came downstairs for breakfast. She asked Grace how much flour went into the bread. She sat beside Nathan at dinner and told him in short little sentences what she had drawn that afternoon. Not much. But enough. In the Whitmore house, enough had become a beautiful word. Then on the 4th morning the envelope arrived. No return address. No stamp from a company. Just Nathan Whitmore's name typed across the front in cold black letters. It was waiting on his desk when he entered the study. At first he thought it was business. Contracts came to him that way. Legal papers. Private offers. Problems wrapped in expensive silence. But the moment he opened it, his stomach tightened. Inside were copies. Old documents. A faded police report. A court filing. A grainy photograph of Grace Miller, younger, thinner, standing outside a courthouse with her head down. Nathan stared at the papers. The room seemed to narrow around him. At the top of one page, someone had circled Grace's name in red ink. At the bottom, a message had been typed in bold letters. Is this the woman you trust with your daughter? Nathan did not move. The house was quiet outside the study door. Somewhere down the hall, Lily laughed once, a short, bright sound. Nathan looked toward it. Then back at the envelope. Whoever had sent this knew exactly where to strike. Not at his company. Not at his money. At Lily's healing. At Grace's place in the house. At the fragile bridge they had only just begun to build. He read the documents again, slower this time. There was no full story here. Only pieces. The kind of pieces meant to frighten, not explain. A report without context. A photograph without truth. A name dragged out of the past and placed like a weapon on his desk. Nathan's jaw tightened. He had spent years reading contracts designed to hide intentions. He knew the shape of manipulation. This was not a warning. This was an attack. He gathered the papers, placed them back in the envelope and locked them in the top drawer. Then he went looking for Grace. He found her in the laundry room folding towels with the same steady care she gave everything. The dryer turned behind her. Warm air filled the room. For a moment he simply watched her. Grace looked up. Something in his face made her hands stop. What happened? She asked. Nathan closed the door behind him. An envelope came today. The color left her face before he said another word. That told him everything. Grace slowly set the towel down. What was in it? Old records, Nathan said. Your name. A courthouse photo. Grace looked away. Her fingers pressed into the edge of the table. For the first time since Nathan had known her, she looked afraid. Not startled. Not embarrassed. Afraid. I can explain, she said, but her voice broke on the last word. Nathan stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. I'm listening. Grace swallowed hard. There was a man before, she said. Someone from my past. He made things ugly when I tried to leave. He knew how to make me look guilty without saying the whole truth. Nathan said nothing. Grace's eyes filled. I thought it was over. She gave a small bitter laugh that had no humor in it. I should have known better. Nathan studied her face. This was what the envelope was meant to do. Make her shrink. Make her run. Make her believe that one old shadow could erase 12 days of patience, kindness, and truth. Grace wiped her cheek quickly, angry at the tear. I don't want Lily seeing this, she whispered. She won't. You don't understand. People like him don't stop at paper. Nathan's expression hardened. Then we stop him. Grace looked at him, stunned. Nathan. No. His voice was quiet but final. You are not standing alone in this. Grace shook her head. I can leave tonight. Before she gets hurt. Before this becomes something bigger. From the hallway a small sound came. Both of them turned. Lily stood in the doorway. Barefoot. Silent. Holding the blue scarf in one hand. Her eyes moved from Grace's face to Nathan's. Is Grace leaving? Grace closed her eyes. Nathan walked to Lily and knelt. No, sweetheart. Lily looked at Grace. But she's scared. Grace pressed one hand to her mouth. Nathan turned back toward her. Yes, he said gently. She is. Lily stepped into the laundry room. The dryer hummed. The house waited. Lily held out the scarf, the one that had belonged to her mother. You said people stay because we carry them, she whispered. Grace's face crumpled. Lily's voice shook, but she kept going. So don't let a bad person carry you away. No one breathed. Nathan stood slowly. In that moment he understood the truth. The envelope was not just about Grace's past. It was a test of what this house had become. Would they return to fear? To silence? To people leaving before love could take root? Nathan looked at Grace, then at Lily. No one gets to use fear to decide who belongs here, he said. Grace stared at him through tears. Outside, morning light filled the hallway. And for the first time the Whitmore house did not feel fragile. It felt ready to fight for what was healing inside it. No one in the Whitmore house ran this time. Not Grace. Not Lily. Not Nathan. The man from Grace's past came back thinking fear would still work. He thought an old report, a courthouse photo, and a few ugly lies could turn Nathan against her. But Nathan did not stand behind a desk this time. He stood beside Grace. With a lawyer. With the truth. And with Lily holding his hand. In a quiet legal office downtown, Grace faced the man who had once made her feel small. Her hands trembled at first. Then Lily slipped the blue scarf into her palm. Grace looked down at it. Emily's scarf. A reminder that love did not vanish just because pain had entered the room. Nathan's attorney laid out the documents one by one. The full story came out. The threats. The manipulation. The missing pieces that had been hidden for years. The man's confidence broke. Grace did not shout. She did not beg. She simply lifted her chin and said, "You don't get to use my past to steal my future." And that was the moment everything changed. Weeks later, the Whitmore kitchen was filled with sunlight again. Flour covered the counter. Lily stood on her step stool drawing while Grace shaped dough beside her. Nathan leaned against the doorway smiling softly. On the paper Lily drew 4 things. Herself, her father, Grace, and the kitchen counter covered in flour. No one stood far away. No one was outside the picture. At the top in uneven letters Lily wrote, "We keep going." Nathan looked at it and felt his eyes burn. Because the house that once felt frozen had learned to breathe again. Grace had not replaced Emily. She had helped Lily carry her memory into the light. And Lily, the little girl everyone thought was too broken to reach, had done something even braver than smiling. She had trusted again. Sometimes, healing does not come from grand speeches or perfect answers. Sometimes it comes from one patient person who stays close without forcing their way in. The people we love are never replaced. They are carried forward in every new act of kindness, every shared table, every warm kitchen, every small moment when we choose not to give up. So tell me in the comments, have you ever met someone who helped you heal without even trying? And if this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel because the next story may remind you that even after the darkest loss, life can still open a door.